Welcome, everybody, to the Old Young Ones. We are looking at episode 5, Interesting. It's the one where they have a party. And this is the party we are having, which means people show up that we did not expect to show up. So Michelle Sileo is back for episode 5.
Hey!
Hey!
And Howie Weingarten is back for every episode.
Every episode.
So lucky.
I'm fully booked.
So let's just jump into this one. This one's I got
interesting.
thoughts.
It's interesting.
First of all, why is it called Interesting?
And not the party.
Yeah, why is it not called Party? Because that's all it's about. The only reason I can think of is because we just covered Boring, which, by the way, you can now see on YouTube. Our coverage for that episode is out with Mike Brown.
All right.
But I feel like, did they just want this to be the other half of Boring? Because I don't.
That makes the most young one sense, right?
Yeah.
And to space it out, with a bomb in between.
I get, yeah, because they're like 2 episodes apart. But this one's got a very, very weird energy, I find.
More manic than usual.
More manic, but then also like quiet parts.
But that's the thing. Is anything really interesting in this episode?
That's a very good point.
It should be.
Should be.
Well, we start
starting.
We start with like Rick and Neil are like in the middle of a bit because they're cleaning the house. They're hiding the TV, which I believe is improv.
Mike's TV.
Yes, Mike's TV from Willy Wonka. Mike TV.
Ha! And the back like that's just fine. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was not supposed to happen because Neil's pretty quiet and not facing everyone. He went, back fell off.
And Rick is wearing my favorite of all time outfit.
The yellow overalls.
Oh, yeah.
So weird, and I love it.
I was rewatching this episode today, and Jill walked in and just went, Rick's got outfits.
That's my
He's also got 2 ponytails in this one.
Right, yes, and his little braided ponytails. And later on, he mentions how he's got his trousers on. Right, he mentions it to the professor. So he's quite aware of how dashing he looks.
Rick is the most self-conscious in this episode, and I really love it.
Yeah,
I did comment in my notes later on about that, and we'll get to it.
We will get to it.
Adrian, Viv loses his hair for God's sake.
It's gone for the whole episode.
Yeah,
yes, I was waiting. I was like, okay, does it just come back in one scene? No.
Nah.
It just happens, and then that's it. The one chance at continuity they had, they took it.
Yeah.
So, here's my question. Why is Mike in charge of the party and setting up and delegating all this responsibility?
I think Mike's just in charge because he's the cool person. Mike likes to be in charge. And so I think, but the thing is, they don't mention that they're having a party. They don't say why they're cleaning. They're just stressing out about it. It almost feels like this episode ran along and they were like, start in the middle of the first scene.
Yes, definitely.
We don't know why they're having this party. We don't know whose idea it was.
Yeah, no purpose. And like this frantic energy of like, they're coming and you can't start the party before it starts. And there's only 15 minutes. There's only 5 minutes or whatever. And let's see. And why is Michael in charge? And Vivian has a vacuum with a jet engine.
Yeah, the vacuum is the first Young Ones thing to happen because I feel like I'm waiting around a couple of minutes to figure out what's going on. And when that vacuum comes in, I go, all right, here we go.
There you go.
And it does what you need it to do. It eats the floor.
Right. It eats the floor.
As it should.
He comes into vacuum because they noticed that there's a cigarette butt on the floor, which I was expecting to come to life as a puppet, but Big Fat did not, and I was disappointed.
I'm always disappointed when the puppets show up. There's like the puppets are back to back in this one, and I'm like, all right, why?
And then he vacuums up the floor, and also Neil's friend.
Yeah, and Neil's friend is like, this is the only time we will see this friend, and he's just a guy doing an impression of Neil.
For sure, and his name is Neil.
A bad impression.
Yeah, it's not great. Well, what bothers me about it is later on we'll see Warlock, who's going to come back in other episodes, and that guy's great. I'm like, why couldn't it just be Warlock that shows up and gets locked in the fridge? Like, who's this guy? Who's this guy standing?
And did you see the stuff locked in the fridge with him?
Yeah, well,
that looks. First tomato.
Puppets.
There's puppets. It's a tomato puppet.
That's first of all, the puppets are all somehow on Skid Row.
Yeah, they're singing like a Torch song, which is so buried that I'm like, oh, this is a cover of something. And then I'm listening to it, I'm like, nah, they wrote this. It's just too full of puns.
And
oh my
god, the puns! It was so much. And was it like was it a radish that was singing the blues? Like again,
I think it was tomato.
It was a tomato because of the ketchup.
Yes, gotta catch up with its life.
And by the way, the BBC warning about like
don't stuff a bloody stupid thing.
Don't stuff people in refrigerators.
You know.
That's the only time they care about the public welfare, I think, at all.
Because I bet you some idiots would try that.
Well, but not the explosions, right? No warnings.
That's fine. Don't worry about explosions. Don't stick yourself in the fridge.
When we were kids, I felt like every show had a lesson about a refrigerator. I feel like there was a refrigerator in Fat Albert's junkyard that somebody was going to get locked in. Like they were very worried that refrigerators were just out lying around with doors on them.
Out to get you.
Too. There was a terrible episode, a very traumatic episode of Punky Brewster where her little friend got locked in the refrigerator.
Yes. Was she okay?
As I recall, they finally figured out where this kid was, and they opened the door, and she fell out unconscious, but she survived.
Was it a friend that you never saw before, or again?
That might be typical of a sitcom where all of a sudden we meet a new friend who, horrible things befall her. But no, this was a recurring character.
Oh,
this nice.
This was a very special episode of Punky Brewster.
This
very
is like
special.
It's like on Different Strokes when Mr. Carlson from WKRP molested Dudley.
Yes.
Oh.
We did that whole thing.
Awkward.
Sitcoms where we had to like learn these awful lessons. Like,
I know, right? What the fuck? I thought we were going there to laugh.
Yeah, damn it. Like the ones.
Make me laugh.
I felt like the very special episode was code for we're not going to be funny this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
The characters are going to stare down in the middle of the set for a while.
It's going to be uncomfortable, and you're not going to
very
like
uncomfortable. And they're all patting themselves on the back about how they're doing their audience a service by encouraging in very important conversations.
Yeah, I remember there was a WKRP that was just against festival seating. That was the whole episode where they were like, it was about in the news, like people were crushed at a Who concert, and the whole episode was about that. And I'm like, what am I as an audience viewer, much less a 9-year-old audience viewer, going to do about concert promotion in this country?
Well, that's the thing. It's just like when I was a kid, right? Buying a ticket to a concert was like signing your own death certificate.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, people were being trampled all the time, satanic shit going on, just all kinds of crazy crap going on. It's just like, I don't want to go there. I'm going to get killed. Yeah, it's just like, you know.
And then on What's Happening, we learned about that you can't bootleg concerts.
No, the Doobie Brothers.
Rerun had one of those spoken word cassettes that fell out of his coat, and the entire Doobie Brothers stopped playing, and it says to be continued.
That was like a Mentos commercial, if I remember. Mentos, like,
yes.
By the way, what is the sound quality through a trench coat?
And he's eating the whole time, remember? Rerun was eating, and so they didn't even get anything out of it.
Rerun eating? No, don't.
I know. Say it's not so.
Yeah. Wait, what were we talking about now?
Yeah.
I know what happened. We went too far afield.
Okay. That's okay.
So then
the young ones have never had a special episode, so that brings us right back on track.
Thank God. And then after we've had enough of the stupid puppets, then we get the dumb plug and outlet puppet thing.
Yeah, that
was a great joke. That was my favorite freaking joke.
What?
It was so bad. How was it for you? Electric.
But then I go back
to even says electric.
Maybe back in the 70s. I don't know. 80s.
Like, I think when you're trying to do a pun, I think that's when that's when it's appropriate to say.
They built that puppet. They built the thing. They got somebody
built this city.
This was a lot of work for such a shitty joke.
Yeah. And we're not even done with the puppets. Like we're gonna get to puppets that have a full Muppet Show puppet environment around them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
you know what the scary thing is? What the scary thing is when we talk about Rick being frantic? Like, oh my God, this got to go here. That's got to go there. You know, oh my God, we've got 15 minutes of the party. holy crap, I've turned into that.
Ah,
I remember,
really?
oh my God, somebody once rang the doorbell 5 minutes early, and I'm like, who the fuck is that? I was just like, come on, the party doesn't start till 7. It was just like, I completely wigged out. And as I was watching Rick, I'm like, holy God. I wasn't like that when I was younger, but
That's not the
damn.
you thought you were.
Uh.
Which
Yeah.
young one did you think you were, Howard?
Vivian.
Of course.
Everyone loves
Wants
Vivian.
to be Vivian.
Everyone wants to be Vivian.
I had kids on Saturday do like a ding and dash on me. They're like their doorbell just rang, and I opened the door and I swear it was like 10 minutes of, but there's another part to this, right? Because I opened the door and nobody's there. That's the end of this experience.
Ring and run?
I'm
Yeah, it was a
proud
ring
of
and
you
run.
for-
It was
you
a ring
know-
and rerun.
Interesting. I don't know the young ones of today did that.
Neither did I, and I live in the middle of the block. So I was like, "Are these kids doing every house? What?
In the
Why
middle of the
my
street.
house? What? I couldn't put it in a logical box, and it annoyed me. And I think that's the point. The point is they ring the doorbell a lot, so the guy at home was like, "What's going on?" And it works.
Did you come out and say, "Get off my lawn"?
No, I just looked out the door, closed the door in case somebody was going to jump at me. And then kind of paced in the living room for like 15 minutes. I think
Damn
it
kids
helps.
with the loud rock music.
Yeah, I think it helps when you ring the doorbell at somebody, it really helps if the person in the house has anxiety. I think that's when you get the most out of it.
But that's hard to, it's hard to, yeah. And it's like, who do we know in the neighborhood who's anxious?
Eventually, everybody will be.
I am.
So then, who is our first guest to the party?
Our first guest. So someone is at the door, which actually works, and I do like that joke.
Who's at the door?
Why don't you show them the door? I think I can see it already. I like that joke.
There are those one-liners there. There's like a bunch in this episode that I love. Because I love that silly ass humor.
I feel like this episode drops gems and then it just kind of meanders for a while, then it drops something. But at the door is Dawn French, who makes every second count.
Yes, she does.
Giving it her all. We all know who
Love
she is.
her.
Yes.
Well, what amazes me about this is later on, she would go to form French and Saunders with Jennifer Saunders, who is also in this and is given nothing to do.
Yeah.
What a waste.
Yeah. Like she gets to sit on a couch and be slightly annoyed. Meanwhile, Dawn French gets to run around the entire
monologue.
Oh my God.
She gets like ink on her butt. Like she
Repent.
has a showcase and she's so good at it. It's like, I feel like this is going to come up a lot in this podcast, but it's like, why didn't you just keep her around for the whole episode? Like, why didn't you do a Blackadder 2 Wicked Child with her where she just attacks every person that comes into that house?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was a perfect opportunity to do that. Just to have her be judgmental and Christian and nutty, and then have when the punks come, there's perfect opportunity right there. And even all the spray painters, like, couldn't you see? I mean, I'm writing the episode right now.
I know. It's another one of those, and I feel like this came up a lot when we were talking about boring. There's so many moments where like, oh, the episode's starting now. You created a scenario where you have 20 minutes of gold, and they do it in 2 and they run away.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
I often I play this game with The Simpsons where I'm like, because the opening scene never tells you where it's going.
Right. Yeah. The first 5 minutes have nothing to do with
anything.
That's great comedy, though.
Yeah, and they somehow hook it in. They do that a little bit on Bob's Burgers too.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes, not always, but always with The Simpsons, I try to figure out where the hell it's going, and it just never does.
It's so tangential. I was watching one where there was a badger in the doghouse, and it first of all has the most disgusting joke ever because Homer goes in to get it. He comes out and he looks fine, and then he lifts up his shirt, and all of his organs are visible. But then. But then he goes to call animal control, but they change the area codes, and that's what the episode is actually about.
Oh God!
And then the badger shows up at the window of the kitchen. He goes, "We're done with you." And the badger's like, "Ah."
But like it's like improv. I can't believe I'm saying this. This is such a grown-up thing to say, where you try to see how far away you can get before pulling yourself back in.
Right.
So I think that that's probably a game that they play in the writer's room. This is, again,
Mhm.
I'm listening to myself and being like, what are you saying? But like, for me as the viewer, like, it's so interesting to watch it go so far away to see
Mhm.
how it is that you're going to pull them back. And
Right.
in the young ones, they're just, I think it's like probably the opposite, like in the way that Punk is, where they're just like, no, we're not actually going to do that at all. We're going to do as much crazy random shit as we possibly can and lose
Mhm.
every opportunity to tie it together. It's just not going to tie together. Fuck right
Correct.
off.
Yeah, everything is a hit and run.
Yeah. Yes.
I love when she says, repent, accept Jesus. Well, not accept Jesus, but
Yes.
accept Jesus.
Not everyone except Jesus.
Not everyone except Jesus. That's a great joke.
Is so excruciating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the excruciating explanation winds up being a hilarious thing. Just like, I can't believe I'm talking about it again. The change bank. Again, when on the SNL change bank skit.
Yes.
When you're explaining the boring minutia of this fucking joke, it winds up being the joke.
And it's for those who don't remember, there's a sketch in the 80s about a bank that only makes change, and they spend so long. He's like, if you give us $5, we can give you 5 singles. We can give you 20 quarters. We can give you 10 quarters of a dime. And then they come to Phil Hartman, who's like, I had a 20 and I needed 2 10s, and it's like, and it's just done in this ultra serious, that very 80s with the textured background and the angled spotlight. It is like that.
That was Phil Hartman.
Yeah. Phil Hartman's in it. It's actually Jim
That's why
Downey,
SNL
one of
was
the
funny.
writers, doing the main guy.
Jim Downey wrote it. And
wrote it, and he plays like the bank manager.
Nice.
But one thing I noticed in this that I didn't make the connection before is that she calls Vivian the Beast after he's blown his hair off, and later in the episode you see 666 is branded into his head.
I didn't see that.
You see it late during the party. Well, we'll get to that part. Like, I did not notice. The last time I watched this, I was like, "Oh, look, he's got a little 666 head," and then I didn't realize it actually pays off. They actually did something he came back to. Because you don't see it then. It's just there.
Why? What did he drink that made him go bald?
It was blue.
That blue stuff.
I was like, he drank Windex and lost his hair. What happened?
Like, this will get the party started, and he drank it by himself and lost his hair, and he was real happy.
There's this old Black Sabbath video where Bill Ward just takes a mug of ale and just loses his hair though.
There's this music video of Black Sabbath. It's for Sabbath Bloody
Sabbath. Bloody Sabbath, yeah.
And it's like, it's one of those typical music videos where they're just kind of jumping around a field and like standing, trying to look cool goofy, outside. And there's one shot. There's one shot of the drummer Bill Ward. He's got a stein like this, and he just slowly drinks the whole thing in one move, and he puts it down, and then
just impressive.
Because clearly, like, he just shows this is the moment when I am intoxicated.
You know, there's one. That's a funny video because I remember one other thing. Tony Iommi has like a bow and arrow and shoots Ozzy, and Ozzy has to pretend he got hit by it. Like, just like
somebody. And how you and I definitely did this in college. They got a camera and they didn't get an idea,
which is fine.
That's a great.
That's fine.
Great. That's awesome.
I think that's simply fine.
So this scene has a cutaway, which I think is a great cutaway that they don't really do anything with, because she says the 4 horsemen, and we cut to the 4 horsemen.
Yes.
At which
I'm hungry.
Yeah, but they don't really do anything. Now it's definitely Rick Mayall is war, and Nigel Planner is famine, and death is a dummy.
Yeah,
is Adrian Edmondson
skeleton?
Is Adrian Edmondson pestilence? Because like,
I'm hungry.
I don't even read that guy at all.
It's Keith Allen.
Keith Allen?
Yeah,
Keith Allen.
So it's like,
don't know.
This is my theory about this episode. There are so many people in it. I think they were we'll have the party episode, so everybody we think is good is going to be in this episode, and not all of them are good.
So it looks like, Keith Allen is, let's see, he's been in a bunch of things, including The I am Genie. Let's see. Wait. Kingsman, The Golden Circle.
Really?
Really?
Okay.
Yes, he played
Yes.
Charles in that.
Good job, Mr. Allen.
It sounds like he's been doing a bunch of supporting things.
I wonder if they knew that, like, I mean, if you watch the credits of the show, like the guest stars, the co-stars, is such a long list.
Mhm.
I wonder if they were just kind of like, hey, you know what? Everyone who's ever been cool to us, just be in the background.
Yeah.
You're gonna be on TV, but you're not gonna do anything. You just have to stand around, look like you're having a party.
Yeah, and
Anyone could do
this is
that.
the one. This is the one to do it because for most of the episodes they don't have crowds. So
Right.
it's like, all right, this is the one place, and it's like anyone we think is funny, we'll give them a line, and the results are mixed.
They
The one
obviously
thing,
didn't think Jennifer Sanders was funny enough, and I feel
right?
like
Jennifer, Sa-
Right.
yeah, Jennifer Saunders gets less to do than Keith Allen.
She gets to date Abe Edmondson.
Yeah, that which was happening at that time. The one thing I like in the Four Horsemen sketch is I really like the voice Rick Mayall's doing.
Yeah.
Like when they're like, "What's new?" and he goes, "Microchip technology,"
Michael.
which I like. And then the other thing he says, which has been stuck in my head. This is one of those things where I didn't know where it was from.
Uh-huh.
But anytime somebody mentions Scrabble,
why?
I just have
Scrabble?
Rick Mayall in my head going, "Death, travel Scrabble, travel Scrabble."
What is with travel Scrabble?
Because
I
they're
don't know.
bored. Because he says, "I'm bored," so God is giving them travel Scrabble.
Another travel Scrabble. We learned that
There's
there's
a pile of them.
There's a pile.
travel Scrabble.
Yeah, because
God
God
is
is
not a-
one thing.
God's not a good gift giver.
No.
Yeah, just like all of our parents when we're on a road trip. Like we've given you the one thing that we're going to give you to entertain yourself. Now shut up.
It's travel Scrabble.
It's travel
Travel Scrabble.
Scrabble. And if you're not entertained by that, then there's a problem with you.
But this is
Oh,
before like DVDs and the internet and Wi-Fi and all that, and microchips. And
Technology, yeah. Yeah, the
Microchips.
fact that they could take a board game and
Technology.
make it small was the height of technology. They had an Othello too. That was like they were
I
really
remember Othello.
Oh my god, that was
Yeah,
Yeah, had the
Othello
little
was great.
white discs that turned into black. They were like black and white cookies. That whole game.
Mhm.
Ooh, I could go for
And then
cookies.
who
They don't
gave
make
us
them here.
sandwich?
They're hard to find
Who's
here.
hungry?
Cookies?
The Four
Oh,
Horsemen.
Famine is hungry because he's
Salmon's
famine.
hungry.
And then he doesn't like the sandwich and he drops it. And that's where we get back into it because it turns gigantic. So I guess these are like eternal gods. And it crushes Dawn French. Which I'm like, great.
And there's a big applause.
By the way,
It's the biggest laugh in the whole.
before we get
episode.
to what I thought was the greatest joke in the entire episode,
Mhm.
they had real horses.
They did.
What
Yeah.
again? Like I have to keep going back to like when they were making this, like, and they were like, well, I guess we're gonna need 4 horses. Like real horses? Why would you need real horses? You put a dummy on one of them. Why why not just dummy horses?
And they're not even the only horses in this episode.
No, I
There
know.
are more horses.
So
More
of
horses.
course, my stupid static brain is like, are those the same horses? Why do we have so many horses? in
No,
this
they're black horses and white horses.
white horses, right? Oh my god, I just lost my mind. So here the greatest
Yeah, I'll do it
joke
to
in
you.
the episode, as far as I'm concerned, was the sandwich comes falling into the apartment, right? It's a ginormous
Uh-huh.
sandwich.
Uh-huh.
And Rick says, typical.
Yeah. We're getting ready
That's
for the
great.
party, and a giant sandwich comes in, and it is typical. That's
Of course.
For them,
And then they turn it into a futon for the guests to sit on.
right. Yeah, and it's not even made a joke. You don't see them do it. It's just when the guests come in, and it's covering the part of the floor that they destroyed with the vacuum.
It's
I love the fact. Mhm. I love the fact when Neil is just kind of like, "Oh my god!" They're like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "It's meat."
He's such a hippie vegetarian.
Yeah.
That's
So then
awesome.
now we get the guests arriving, which also has a
Mhm.
great Rick line for me when he's like, if that's still here when the guests are here, you're in trouble. And then the
You're in
normal lady
trouble.
goes, yeah, you're in trouble. And then the guests are Jennifer Saunders, and the guy is in the first episode. He's the guy sniffing glue when he talks about not being able to get into pubs. And I do
Knows it
love this
around.
bit. I do love this bit. It's very Rick that he's so worried that his friends aren't cool because they didn't show up late. That he's haranguing them.
Oh God. It's like, you sit here.
I have seen this piece of this episode over and over again in all of my social media feeds. I don't know why the algorithm thinks I want to see it, but I've seen this piece
That's right.
over and over and over again when he puts on the Human League. And
Yes, I have been seeing that lately.
He is the embodiment of me at every party from the 90s.
Putting on the Human League.
I wish I could dance that good.
We did that. We were at this party when I used to work at the Museum of Television and Radio. We went to a Christmas party, and I had just bought the 2 CD Beastie Boys compilation.
Ooh.
And my friend and I were obsessed with it. And then so we went to the apartment, and they had the CD player. So we put in the best of the Beastie Boys. And my friend's wife, who was at the party, every now and then she'd want the music to change, and we just stood by the radio. She would change it to something else, to like Spice Girls or something, because it's like 99. And as soon as she left the room, the Beastie Boys would go right back on. That was the entire. Oh, and by the way, I had to look this up. The Roger Bannister joke, which is yet another puppet.
I don't remember it.
When they're like,
the Bannister,
kill it to Roger Bannister, and the Bannister goes, that's really interesting.
Oh, that's right.
Roger Bannister was actually a person. He was like an Olympic gold medal runner.
Nice.
So like, okay, that joke kind of has a reason.
Kind of makes sense, but yeah.
I almost researched that one, but I figured I was overdoing it already.
No, I overdid it for you.
Thanks.
I got to tell you, I love when those cops burst in. The music's too loud. The neighbors are complaining. I nearly fell on the floor because that was just like, it was like, what was it playing? 4 seconds?
4 seconds, and they like
not loud. It's the greatest joke.
He smashed the record.
It's the greatest joke since Typical.
It's the great. It's the great. I think it's the greatest joke in the episode.
It is. I think so. But I do like Electric, but that's the best joke.
But it's also a joke you would only write in your 20s. You would only write that when you're at a lot of parties and the cops keep telling you it's too loud, which I don't do anymore. And it occurred to me halfway through this, which was depressing. I was like, oh yeah, I remember being in my 20s and I would throw parties in my apartment. We go to parties at a moment's notice. I would call you, Howie, and I'd be like, I'm going to a party. Do you want to meet me and go to this party? And we didn't know anybody there. And I was like, yeah, I don't do that anymore because I'm not in my 20s. So I was like, I also don't go to parties.
Right.
I have never had more than 2 people in this house that don't actually live in the house.
Me being one of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I also don't get invited to other people's parties. I don't know. In my mind, they just stopped, and probably the people our age.
I think they change. I think they just change, especially when kids come along and stuff like that.
They just stopped. People our age don't have parties.
Yeah, and it was
heaven
like,
forbid.
It was like the drop of a hat. You had a party. You would have a party just because there hadn't been a party in a couple of weeks.
I had a party in the 90s. I called it the anti-Valentine's Day party. I had broken up with my boyfriend, and I was going to celebrate. It was called the anti-Valentine's Day party and celebration of bitterness.
Why was I not at this party?
I don't know how you announced this
party.
This is when we knew each other. I feel like I should have been at that party.
You should have been there. Everybody had to come in black, of course, which wasn't that much of a stretch. And couples could not arrive together. Those were my rules.
How was it?
It was great. Mike made. Remember Mike, the giant tall guy. He was very goth. He made wings. They were delicious. I still remember that. He'd be like a huge tray of wings. I had just chicken wings at this party, but it didn't matter. The place was like, it was great. There was lots of people there. I was completely awkward, only serving chicken wings.
Yep.
And it was appropriately bitter.
Yeah, and back when I was single, I would just go to all these parties, hoping that I would meet somebody, and never doing so. And then I got to a period where I had to turn that around because my motto became, I may hook up tonight, but I will get drunk tonight.
Yes.
There's only and then it was becoming fairly regular that would happen. And I was like, you know what? I got to stop drinking for a while.
It used to be like, it's not that I'm getting drunk. It's how drunk am I getting?
Yeah. It's and how quickly will I get drunk? But but I felt like I was at a lot of parties in houses like that where I knew one person. And you'd walk around the house and you're like, how do these people live in this thing?
Yes. Like lots of creepy ass places I wound up to.
Yeah.
Like apartments above stores and
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
I was in a party in Brooklyn. This is when I was doing stand up, so it like went a mile further from being creepy because there wasn't a lot of comedians and people had no money. And it was a warehouse space where they had built cubes and everybody lived in a box in the middle of this one giant room.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, then at these parties, did you raid girls' pocketbooks and see if
No, but that is oh, but first of all you get by the way you get more guests showing up, and Lisa Mayer shows up, one of the writers, who she's the really short one with the black hair. She gets pretty much nothing to say. Yeah, but she gets to be on camera.
Oh.
And you see, cool. Good.
But Vivian's push-ups, it's like there are jokes in this, especially when he and Rick get together and they go through the pocketbook.
Yes.
These are like Beavis and Butthead level
oh my God.
virgin jokes. And I'm like, these just were, and it's kind of like a lot of what Bottom would become when they were older. But just this idea of like, hey girls, look what I can do.
Mousy, mousy, mousy.
Yes.
It's a telescope with a mouse inside.
Oh, I can see through. Wow.
My favorite part of that is that, like, that's some shit I've witnessed over and over again, and in lunchrooms and parties and like hangouts all over, constantly growing up.
The sad thing is that at 20 years old, I could see myself doing that.
Of course.
Oh,
heck, at 50 years old, 50 years old, I could see myself doing that.
No,
my wife's like, "Oh Jesus."
But I could see myself with you doing that because I would think it was funny.
Yes.
And you'd egg me on.
Oh, I would always egg you on.
Of course you would, as you should.
Yeah, no. I knew my place in my 20s. I knew I was funny, but I also knew I couldn't get away with stuff. So I would just ramp people up around me.
There you go.
Get them to do it. And then they would come back for me to punch up their material.
When in doubt, have someone else do the dirty work.
Yeah.
Which is a great movie.
Motorcycle. Just ramp it up and let it go.
Yeah. And they come back to like, that girl's really mad at me. I was like, well, go say this. And then she'd get more mad.
Yeah.
And then
how mad could she get?
Yeah. And then they buy me free beers. And that's kind of how I lived in my 20s.
There you go.
In my 20s, I acted exactly like Rick. Just completely awkward and trying to get people to laugh and see things from my perspective, which nobody did. And I still can't believe I'm doing it. Yeah.
And this is where the cool teacher shows up.
Who was that guy?
I don't know, but he didn't bring much to the party. It was like, I thought it was a great insight to have the cool teacher, but he was just kind of walking around being cool. I was like,
but that's the thing. It's just like, I think him doing nothing was great because Mayor was doing everything.
Yeah, because he was so
like trying to impress him, trying to go over the top.
He's like, how did you get here? In my car. Amazing.
He's just amazing.
And you're wearing trousers just like me. Or whatever he said about that. That actor is Nicholas Ball. He is been in a bunch of stuff you've never heard of. And it looks like the last thing he was in was something called Mutant Chronicles in 2008.
Okay. He's still alive.
He looks like
he had a Mike Brady-ness about him.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Oh, and I didn't notice this. His name, the character's name, was Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm Jim Morrison. I'm like, of course you are. But here's something I don't get. Like when he's asking for a drink, Rick takes the liquor bottle that he just stole from his friends because they were opening it early. He's like, what are you, alcoholics? But if you notice, he puts it on the counter and then he covers it up with like a serving tray. So like, why is he hiding that liquor bottle?
Maybe it's the good stuff. I mean, that's why I would hide it.
Yeah, because then he comes back with 2 Heinekens for everyone.
See, that's the trick. That's what you do. And then finally we have the friend falling out of the fridge.
Yes.
And it's not cool.
No.
It's just not
Cryogenics.
That's just not cool. And then my other thing that made me laugh was the next guest, the guy at the door, and he shows up and he's drunk. He's got the antenna.
Oh, Alexi Sale shows up.
Alexi Sale.
Yeah. I liked him in this, and I feel like we covered this in every episode because like he's in every episode as a different thing.
Mhm.
Yes.
And it's like sometimes he comes in and just stops everything dead for
Yes.
a couple of minutes, and sometimes he integrates. And I feel like this is one where he integrates pretty well.
I felt like this was he sticks out because he's completely professional
Mhm.
and delivers everything beautifully.
Yeah.
And I come in and use the
Oh
toilet.
yeah,
No, I didn't think so. That's why I pissed in the garden. Like
It's a great joke.
that's a great joke.
And it's a joke.
yes, and it just
Like, do you know who I am? Yeah, you.
yes yes,
That's right.
You know,
and it just unfolds so beautifully. Like fell right out of the two of them. It was just perfect. That's why I pissed
Yeah,
in
and-
your
and-
garden. So great.
And Chris Ryan's game for that. And also, actually, right before that, because Chris Ryan enters and he's in Adam Ant's jacket, which I
Oh
think
my God.
really
Yeah, what
sets the
was
time
that?
pace. But I love that, like, he comes in and starts making jokes and they all bomb.
Yes.
And he
Yeah.
looks at the camera and he's like,
Awful.
He also breaks the fourth wall a few times
Yeah.
with like just for no reason. There's like a like what am I
Yeah.
saying? I don't know. What am I going? I don't know what to say.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
because they're like, will you go answer the door? Well, see what the question is.
yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for looking at the camera because we didn't understand that you were being goofy. But he does say, if you're looking for a fight, Neil's in the lounge. That I loved.
Yes.
He said that.
That's
And this
great.
is where more horses show up.
More horses show up. Now, so here comes Cinderella. And then
Cinderella.
at first I
Why?
was like, that's not Cinderella though, right? Like, what is happening right
I
now?
feel like it's Cinderella with a telephone game because later on
Okay.
they follow up Cinderella in a way that is not Cinderella whatsoever.
Yes, you are correct. But
And
then-
and also she doesn't do a lot. She's entered the party and he takes her right up to his room, and we don't see very much of that.
So they spent
Neither does he.
money on the horses and this
No
beautiful
horses and carriage. There's like an entourage.
and
You're
then
already upset, Michelle, that they paid for 4 horses but not 4
No.
people. And now here's 2 more.
This is like they had like this huge giant wedding and then got divorced 3 months later.
not even before the reception was over. What'd you spend all this money for? And then they got the dress, they got the actress and the dress, and then you just dismiss the whole carriage. If you paid the money for the carriage, you should have at least had more carriage in the episode.
Well, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
That's
Nothing.
gone. She doesn't
Yeah.
even do anything. Like it's as if you were like had 4 real bros, not like, I don't know, lunkheads, sitting around going, I don't know who else shows up at a party. Cinderella shows up at a party. Yeah, Cinderella shows up. We're gonna need a carriage.
And they had the budget where nobody was like, guys, you can't do that for 2 minutes. They could do that for 2 minutes.
Oh,
Well, they
one
got
of
a
the
friend.
reasons One of the reasons they did is because they were a variety show which had a bigger budget, which brings us to maybe the worst band I've ever seen on this show.
I didn't. Oh God.
Ming Ming and the Panic.
Rip, Rig, and Panic.
Rip.
Rip,
And-
rig,
and
and panic.
It
I can't
seemed
even
like-
say it fast.
It seemed like a new wave version of like the ska of the late 90s.
I said it's
Right.
I thought it was awesome punk ska band.
Yeah. And the singer is way off key.
Oh yeah, a mess, but it's punk.
It's
So,
a
like,
mess. And like the saxophone player is just like getting in front of her and dancing, but not playing the saxophone. There's like 8 guys in the band, and they're just playing the same riff over and over and over.
For 2
I
minutes.
I hate
Did you
this.
fast forward at all? Anybody?
But
No.
again,
You know what I did? During that song, I looked down at my notes and I fixed the spelling errors.
see,
Okay, very good.
That's how I spelled
Time well
that
spent.
song.
that's how you knew the right
Time
name.
well spent. You know what the
That's
funny
how I
thing
knew
is?
they were Rip, Rig, and Panic.
Right.
I actually was debating in my mind,
Hmm.
like from the first episode, that the band that they had there, Demolition.
Oh yeah,
I was just
9 Below Zero, which I
like-
love. I love those.
So you
guys.
love them. I thought they
I
were.
love. They're so late 70s.
I know.
And
I thought they
skinny
were
ties and
terrible.
A harmonica player.
I thought they were about it. You know,
Well,
I
and the
was just
guy's
like,
got that thick London accent and terrible teeth where he's like, oh, not rougher to do. Like, yeah, I want to hear your whole album. You know what? I'm
You know-
going to ask Spotify. Play 9
know?
Below Zero. Because you know what? I did it with Cliff Richard. And
You did?
I
Okay.
I listened to like 10 Cliff Richard songs in a day.
Cliff
I'm like,
Richard.
oh, I get why they were specifically making fun of him.
Fun of Cliff Richard and Leonard
Yeah.
Cohen.
Yes, I heard Devil Woman.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Well, Leonard
But,
Cohen's actually good. Like in the late 90s, we all decided Leonard Cohen was a national treasure.
Yes.
So it's weird that they start attacking Leonard Cohen.
It's funny because it's just like, I wonder like how they actually pick some of these bands. I know why they picked Motorhead. I know why they picked Madness or Dexys Midnight Runners. Some of the bands is like even the Damned that I don't know that well.
Yeah,
you know,
I know Damned was like an early goth band, so they definitely still have a following.
But if you think about how Saturday Night Live used to book their musical guests, right? It was for them early on. It was bands that they would have bands long before you heard of them.
Okay,
long
that's
after
true.
you heard of them. So
basically cheap.
Yes.
On the cheap.
And it's like any talk show. Like I'll see old 90s Conan bits, and it'll be like he has like Weezer on, and he has like you know like Silverchair, and I'm like what do these have to do with Conan? Nothing. It's just that's who was in the scene at the time and available. So,
I wish they would have had.
I don't think they liked every band that they had on.
Probably not.
I wish they would have had Stone Garden.
The Stone Ground.
Stone Ground. You can tell Michelle about that.
Yeah, so we covered this on an early episode. We watched all the Christopher Lee Dracula movies. And my favorite one ever is Dracula 72, where like Dracula wakes up in 1972 London, but they still think it's 1968 London.
Okay.
And there's a band. It starts with a party at this mansion, and the band is called the Stone Ground. And they're going on for like 10 minutes, and then it goes to a dialogue scene, and then it comes back to the band. And I was like, the only thing it was missing was cutting to Christopher Lee going, once again, the Stone Ground.
Right. But this was like every party in the 90s too, where you all of a sudden had to listen to somebody's freaking band.
Yeah.
Sometimes mine.
I'll tell you.
Oh God, not yours.
Sometimes mine or my cousins. You had to listen to my cousin's band a lot.
You know, or your cousin. Oh God, not that guy. That fucking guy.
At least it wasn't at somebody's house. At least they were playing at the
Yeah, they were playing at an actual venue.
At an actual venue.
That was always a plus.
Always a plus.
Oh, I couldn't find it at the Lions Den. They were always at the Lions.
Oh, yeah. We played the Lions Den a few times too. That was a good 90s place. The Lions Den and the Wetlands.
In the Wetlands.
The Wetlands we had some great times in the Wetlands. Oh, I don't think I ever told either one of you this. I was in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You were for what?
You were?
Because I bought a ticket.
You inducted?
No, I gave them money and they let me walk around for a while. But they actually had the VW bus from the Wetlands, and there was like a plaque that said like this was in a hot grunge venue in the 90s, and I'm like, oh my God, I leaned on this thing so many times drinking Guinnesses in a wool coat, and then I looked and there were stickers of everybody's bands, and I found a Q South sticker, and I found an Art Asylum sticker.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, we did that, and I definitely did that. And I'm like, that's as close as I'm going to get to being in here, and I can live with it.
That's awesome. I think that's really cool, to be honest.
It is pretty cool.
That's pretty damn cool.
That is you being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, there you go. And you tried to make fun of me for it.
Oh, see, now I take it over.
Although the last time I went to the Rock and Roll of Fame, that bus was no longer on display.
Ah, shit.
You know.
Well,
so after the band,
yes,
the band.
They say the pubs have closed, and now everyone's coming to the party. Which, being in my 20s, I don't understand, because I was like, why would you go to somewhere you had to pay for drinks?
Yes,
to show up to a house party late where the drinks are free.
Well,
if I had a party to go to, I did not go to a bar that night. I went to a bar if we didn't have any other plans.
Well, the funny thing is that like when you say that, I always thought that after we went out to the bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
My favorite part of the night was probably going to the diner afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 3 in the morning. Yeah,
that was the best. Like a burger that time of the morning. Oh my God, it was.
And then
To me,
you were
it's-
just like everybody was kind of white, but you were all like punchy and giggling, and
Yeah.
the same thing would happen when I was doing stand up, because like when we would close the club at like 1, 2 in the morning and we'd go to a diner, it was that same feeling of like, you know, you've been through this experience with your friends, and you
Mhm.
can like, you're not trying to impress anybody anymore. You're just letting
Nope.
it hang out. And I
No-
still
no
have
fun.
like
Being
so
yourself.
many stories from sitting in those diners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. So
But,
why they came from a bar to somebody's house? Usually, if it's a house party or a bar,
Because the
that's a no-brainer,
bars
I
are closed
guess.
now, and there's no place else to go.
I guess the only thing I could say is it's like, well, look who was hosting. It's just like I'd rather pay for the
That's true.
beers than
you have to be a little drunk to show up.
you have to be a little. You've had a few in you to be like, oh, all right, I think I can take this.
I have gone to that party where
But
it's
I
like,
think
You know,
I got to start early before I walk in this guy's door.
it's more that nobody would right. Who the hell wants to go hang out with these losers? Right? Unless I absolutely have to. And you know what?
You
At
are
2 o'clock in the
lunatics.
morning, I absolutely have to.
well, the funny thing is that even when you think about it, just like all of a sudden they bust in, chaos just breaks out.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but no one's called the cops. It's just I
No,
just
they've
find
already arrived.
they've already
Yes.
and broken the record player, which I think is hysterical.
Well, here's my question about the cops, because everybody shows up. We get to meet Warlock, who's way better than fake Neil, and Rick meets a real protester, which is a great idea, but the guy's energy is not quite there, so it's forgettable. But then you have Mark Arden and Stephen Frost show up, and this is a comedy team who they're in every episode. Like they played the two cops in another one.
Oh yeah,
and they ended up they were both on Blackadder, and they ended up with their own show. Howie, I think you would like this. It was a 1991 police parody sitcom called Lazarus and Dingwall.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
I feel like we need to watch it. But they show up, and I can't figure out. They're trying to get into the party, and they're using evidence to get. Are they undercover cops? Because I feel like they are, but there's no evidence of that.
Yeah, the thing is that for me, that the two of them actually, I thought that the episode was actually building up some momentum, and when they showed up, I wasn't crazy about the two of them. I was just like, all right, can we get back to the main four guys?
I like them later when they're trying to get down the chimney, because
that's funny. That's better. That is better.
Then you add another layer of absurdity.
Yes.
Right. The kid stuck in the chimney since the 19th century.
Yeah.
And
he calls them, and that's the thing about the characters I can never put my finger on, because the whole setup is that Neil has the joint and the doorbell rings, and he's like, what if it's the pigs? And then he puts it in his mouth. Well, and while they're talking to him, it's filling up until it comes out his ears. So I was like, oh, so those guys are undercover cops. But then when they're fighting the 19th century chimney, he goes bloody students and throws, and I'm like, well, then who are these guys?
I don't know.
They're the only guys not invited. I know that much.
Yeah, I don't understand how the door's working, right? Like, who's allowed to come in and who's not allowed to come in, and why not those two guys?
Yeah,
right. Like the whole pub came in. Why can't they come in?
Right. Yeah, and obviously it's like everyone who's different friends of their group, so it's people that do not get along.
I do love it when the big exhale happens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then and then he goes inside, he takes a hit off the bomb. And
that's what I love, is that the first thing coming to him, he's high out of his mind, and Warlock's like, take a hit of this.
Get of this. And then I totally did not expect him to very gracefully just float away
to the moon.
To the moon.
And then it turns into the Muppet Show right there with those two.
It's just the Muppet Show.
Yes.
Yeah, they're like they're better puppets than any of the other puppets we've seen. Yeah. But even the angle they use, and the style of the backdrop, it's just the Muppet Show.
They go, but they go, oh, this reminds me of that Bowie song.
Yes.
They say Sheen Genie.
He goes, yeah.
You know?
They sing
Major Tom?
No.
Yeah. No, because he says it's just like that song. You think he's gonna say Major Tom? He's like, Genie? Yeah. And he goes, oh, look, planet Earth is blue and there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
That's also where I learned that the British call him David Bowie.
Bowie. It's just like, Bowie, what's Bowie?
I ignore it every time they do that.
And
And then the two guys are on the roof, and then they meet the early 19th century child labor kid.
Yep.
Here we go.
And Santa is trapped halfway down.
And Santa's trapped halfway down.
I really
hooks up at the end.
I really like Santa. I don't know why.
Yes.
He's very classic British Santa where he has a hood instead of a hat.
Yep.
And then he's
got that very long beard, like a ZZ Top.
Yeah.
He gets one joke and it makes me laugh so hard where he's sitting next to Jennifer Saunders and he goes, ho, 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 and Jennifer Saunders goes, fascist.
Fascist. I love it.
Oh, I love that.
Go stand up, fascist. And this is where this is another great Rick moment because Rick is so self-conscious and too self-aware that he looks in the camera and says, we're so decadent. After he's given that whole speech about like once we stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning and once we were watching a TV show and I just switched it off.
Oh, that's like,
great.
It hurts.
That reminded me there was a joke in Absolutely Fabulous, which was Jennifer Saunders in the 90s. And I remember her daughter was really nerdy.
Yes.
And I remember there was an episode where she had her nerdy friends over and one of the girls went, we drank beer the other night. I had a whole can.
Oh.
And just the way she said a whole can just stuck in my mind.
That kind of pinpointing of the awkwardness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So cringe, so British, perfectly done, so well executed because they're so like self-aware of how uncool I don't
really are.
But they can be, or situations anyway can be.
Yes. Well, the British humor is so about awkwardness and about accidentally stepping out of your class and being told to go back.
What I find funny is that like with this episode, it was just like with everything, like their party was actually pretty well, we're getting up to the point of the end, but up until then, it was a pretty boring thing. Not a lot happened, you know?
Right. But then it gets going and any other show, it would be about that party. Right. I wrote this down in my notes. I was like, this is not an episode about a party. This is an episode about the beginning of a party.
You know? Yeah. But their like their party and the four characters, you really see, as we said, they're not cool. They're actually boring. But when you look back at episode 3, it's just like that episode had like a lot of more interesting things to it to me. Yeah. So it's almost like it's funny. It's almost like a misnomer. Like 3 should be interesting and 5 should be boring, but it's really the other way around.
I think that's the irony of it. And boring was mostly about they were bored. And interesting things were happening around them.
Interesting things were happening. Right, exactly.
Yeah. So
thank you.
So now we get the punks that I really do like. Yes. Because it's like the answer to We Stayed Up Till 1 a.m, where he was like, I kissed a girl. You're a liar. Why aren't you pregnant? I might be. I don't care. I don't care if I'm pregnant. I don't care if I live or die.
If I'm pregnant. What if you're pregnant? That was the best.
Yeah. And then Vivian is clearly the linchpin of his group, even though early on he says he has lots of friends, but he doesn't like
any of them.
Yes.
I never forgot that joke. I wondered where that came from.
It comes from this episode.
This episode.
When the punks come and you see Vivian hanging with his friends, this is going to be this observation I made, I was just like comforted by the fact that he did have people like him. And again, I'm talking about the stupid Muppets because it felt the same as when in the Muppet Show, the Muppets go visit their families.
Yeah.
Right.
Remember, and then you just see different versions of like Miss Piggy.
You get to see like an old lady, Fozzie Bear.
Yes. And like, Fozzie's family. Oh, this is where Fozzie comes from. Like, oh, this is where Vivian comes from. Like, oh, look, see? These are his family. This is the origin story.
Oh, and we also get the wrap up of Cinderella, where apparently at midnight Cinderella turns into a pumpkin.
Yeah, that's
not the story. It's
not the carriage. Cinderella.
But we're supposed to know when she goes, it's midnight, and he goes, you're supposed to, as an audience member, go, oh no, that means, and that's not what it means.
You know?
Everything else sort of lines up, like her godmother gave her the dress.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Right? I guess she's supposed to go to a party.
And she shows up at that one.
At
This
that
is the
one,
wrong
that
one.
makes it. She does have a footman. He should know where they're going, but whatever. I'm gonna look past that.
Uh-huh.
I
And
love
she
that you
might-
know he's a footman.
There was also only one horse because they made the horse out of the donkey, but whatever. I'm gonna stop with the horse shit.
Uh-huh. Really good play that, like it's called Equus.
Yeah. So I feel like where we are now in the last 5 minutes of this episode is they could have spent the whole 20 minutes here because so much happens that because then there's this character Colin, and Colin
Right.
bothers me,
Yes.
and I think he bothers me because I'm a
Oh.
little scared that that's what I looked like in high school.
Oh, for God's sake.
No. That's not how you looked.
There's something I identify
It's
with
much,
Colin
much
that I
worse.
do not like.
Is how you acted. You didn't look
Like-
like that though.
Yeah, but Alexei Sale throws up on him, and then he's asking the bullies if they know any good jokes, and it's
He
just
puts
like,
him on a stretcher, puts the feet in the fire, whatever.
oh, and that's a great moment as Vivian takes over because they knock him out, and he's like, and he just gets all the punks running, where he's like, "You get a stretcher, you get my scalpel, we're gonna play
Scalpel.
dissection," and then he looks at the skeleton, and he goes, "You stay there." But you
You know-
never see where that goes because then the bullies start bullying Neil.
Of course. Always.
Right. Of course.
And
Do you know what I
that's
thought was a
Go ahead.
you know what I thought was a funny joke? Just going back early in the episode. Rewind. There was the thing where like the clock goes really fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's only 7:10.
He's like, that clock is broken.
The clock's broken. It just goes around and around really fast.
And that was like that was a very Simpson-y kind of joke.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that joke. Anyway, let's fast forward.
And
back to
speaking of Simpson-y type of jokes, so a riot breaks out, which is kind
Right.
of you think that would happen midway through, but no, this is how it ends. And then Neil wakes up, says it was all a dream. All the credits go on while he's getting dressed, and then then he realized that's the dream.
That's the dream.
And that's the twist I like because everybody it was only a dream. And that final shot of
with
Neil's
that
head with
noise.
3 Doc Martin boots coming at him. And where you can tell they've been posing for that for at least
Yes.
2 minutes.
Like, keep your foot up. Keep your foot up.
Yep. But I think it really works.
It's this episode
It's
that
just,
I
it's just.
I'm
You go
sorry.
first.
I,
You go-
I
you go.
this episode I'd seen a lot, and also the one where Neil is in a tub of muck.
Oh yeah, the bath one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's coming up soon.
Yes, we're not up to that one. I think that one is nasty.
Yeah.
Because it's the
think so.
one where they have the video.
Oh, we got a video.
Yes, we've got a video. Which, by the
Yeah.
way, it's so hard to not say that every single time I post this on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is interesting. Which when I watched it earlier in the week, I was like, okay, this is clearly the weakest episode in season 1. This one's not that great. But now, as we talked about it, I'm like, well, this one has like some really great jokes.
Moment.
If not great bits and sketches. And the other ones have like these fantastic sketches that go on for like 3 minutes and everything's great. This one, I feel like
Right.
you get a one-liner here, you get an aside here, you get a character moment that never comes back. So I feel like this is kind of a bag of jokes, this episode, and it which is like halfway successful. What are you guys thinking?
Michelle.
I liked that. It wasn't my favorite episode, save for the Human League scene. That little piece of the Human
That
League.
little-
Which is
yeah.
a joke. It's not a sketch, it's a joke.
That's a
That-
joke.
The horribleness of it, his awful dancing. Before we even get to the cops crashing in 30 seconds after the music starts, like, have you ever heard of the Human League? Like, he's so horrendously awkward. It's
Well, pop music.
Yeah.
it's just perfect and wonderful, and I love it.
The Human League is such a specific reference because they're not
Yes.
terrible, but they were popular at that time, and it's not what
Very
you would expect
popular back
any of them
then.
to listen to.
Yes. And then
Yeah.
his ridiculous awkward dancing, like it's just great. And then and the thing that he's wearing, which somehow I always thought was waterproof or made out of material that a raincoat would be made out of.
Like suspenders and something like that, and just like,
Yes.
it's funny because like, I will say this, I think the next one is of this series season is Flood. And if I remember Flood correctly, Flood is pretty funny. The thing is that like, yes, this probably is the weakest one. And the thing is that with the end there, with Neil, with the 3 Doc Martens coming out his head, for some reason that always disturbed me. I just did, with all the zaniness and all the slapstick and all the, getting hit in the head with this, that, the other thing, whatever, explosions. For some reason that always bothered me. I don't know why.
It's a little dark. There's no way something funny comes out of that.
There's nothing funny about that.
Yeah.
But it works.
Yeah, that party ends well. Well, as you said, Howie, Flood is the next episode we'll be covering. So we'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk about that, and that will finish season 1. That the 6 episodes of season 1. And our guest for that will be Joe Pakovitz, who is a British super fan and who's a veteran of the Caffeinated Comics podcast. But Michelle, it is always good to have you. I'm
always
glad
a pleasure.
you're able to come back.
We will see you again.
Oh,
I hope so. I hope I won't have a burn.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You did that before recording.
Go to urgent care. Go to urgent care right now. I have a burnt tongue. Help me. Could you bandage this up?
You wanted to make sure we were still recording when you did that. You had to do it again.
So you can recording. So 2 weeks from now or a week from now, you can take a look at it and go, I think it's healed.
I think it's healed.
Maybe
this is my right.
You can the next time when this episode airs in a couple weeks,
right?
That's
leave
right.
a comment. My tongue is fine now.
This is my before. This is the situation.
Yeah.
Well, we will pray for it.
Yes, and in the next couple of weeks, we will return with more old young ones. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Because we may not be the young ones very long.